Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about why bad form is usually an issue of muscle weaknesses, and therefore just correcting what you do is not going to fix it. And I think people need to remember there's a big difference between form and technique. And that's one reason when people come here and they try to critique my technique, I ignore them. And I think because people forget that I've mentioned I have multiple coaches who have squats in the 700 plus pound range who look at my lifts. Okay, some of them are pretty famous people. I'm friends with them. They look at my stuff for me. And my general rule is that I tell people if you're not coaching multiple lifters who squat 600 pounds raw, I just don't need your help. You're not qualified to help me anyways. So if you don't have your name and everything and I can't see who you are and don't know who you coach, don't bother. Because I already have really, really awesome coaches who do look at my stuff for me, who are better than I am in terms of strength and who do coach elite lifters. So people forget though, when it comes to form is usually a muscle weakness. Technique is things that we can correct. And what do we mean technique? Getting tighter, maybe not looking down when you squat. That's one of the most important things you can do with squatting, by the way, is keeping that head neutral, keeping your neck neutral. Which is why I really dislike the starting strength looking down thing. It was horrific advice. Everything else they say is usually good. That one's bad. Finding your ideal foot position on a deadlift, right? Not going too wide on your deadlift because you're not fat. Okay, that's technique. Fat guys have to do a wide stance. Non-fat guys who don't have a giant belly when they conventional deadlift should be very, very narrow stance. They should be inside shoulder width. Why? Because that's the best technique. It gives you the best levers. Okay? Things like that. That's technique. And that's just starting positions. When you see form itself break down, what you people think of as form breakdown, when you tell people to fix their form, do you know how to fix it? In other words, if you see someone who is in the correct start position, okay, if you see someone squat, they have their elbows down and back, right? Their shoulder blades are down and back, their elbows are pointed down, and they have a neutral neck, and you see rounding of their upper back. And you say, oh, that's bad form. My question to you, do you know how to correct it? Because it's not a technique issue. Not a technique issue. If you see someone bench pressing and the bar drifts all the way above their face at the lockout, you do know, yes, that's terrible form. What's causing it? What muscle weakness is causing it? Right? There's problems here. Most of bad form that you think of as form breakdown is caused by muscle weakness. And that's why people who are technically proficient, we can't find their weak links when they're doing technique work. Okay? If someone is technically proficient at an exercise and they know how to perform it correctly, that means they know where to put their feet. They know how to turn their toes out on a sumo deadlift. They know how to pull their scapula together. Can you tell where their weak links are if they're only using 80%? No. No, you can't. Because what people think of as bad form doesn't come out till you're straining. Okay? Bad technique can be seen when you have the empty bar. Bad technique is visible with the empty bar. If the bar moves through a terrible bar path when you're warming up with the empty bar, and your feet and hands and scapula and everything else are in the incorrect position, that's just bad technique. That's fixable. But when people start saying, oh, your form breaks down as you get heavier, well, yeah, that's what happens. You do realize that's a muscle weakness. And if form breaks down, and it will if you go heavy enough. Everyone's form breaks down when you go heavy enough. When you go heavy enough, either your form breaks down or you get stapled under the weight. Okay? That's the only two options. If you keep going heavier, you exceed your capabilities. Someone with really balanced musculature, a lot of times they'll just get stapled and the bar goes down in a straight line with no form breakdown. Okay, that actually indicates fewer muscle weaknesses. That just means they weren't strong enough to lift that weight. But when form degrades, that's indicative of a muscle weakness. So when people say fix your form, you kind of sound like an idiot. Because you wouldn't say fix your form, right? What would you say? You would say you need to get your T-spine and mid-trap stronger and bigger. You need to spend more time developing your thoracic spine. We would say you need to spend more time developing your glutes. You need to spend more time developing the lateral and medial head of your hamstring. Your triceps, right? You need to build bigger hamstrings. That should actually be the correct response. But the problem is that the average person watching who wants to obsess other people's forms, including even your friends, maybe you're a fairly new personal trainer, and you want to correct someone's form, you can't just say fix your form. And the problem is that the people who are doing it, they don't know how to identify the weakness. They just know that it doesn't look right to them. Well, the problem is that when you see that and you're talking to someone who's a remotely experienced lifter, and you say that, don't you think that they know it doesn't look right either? I mean, that's a serious question. If you have an untrained eye and you know jack shit about lifting and correcting weak points, you've never coached anybody in your life, which means you probably don't know anything, right? And you got to be fair, guys. I don't care if you've been lifting 10 years. If you've never coached anybody or assessed your own form and weaknesses, you just go in and train. You don't know anything. So if you don't know anything and you can tell that the form looks a little off when someone gets really heavy, don't you think that lifter knows it if they videoed it or put it up somewhere? Of course they do. So my question is, for the people who come in and assess that, do you know how to fix it? If you can't even identify the problem, how are you going to fix it? And this is something we all need to learn with our lifting. When you see your own form not look correct on a lift, and you know that you set your technique up correctly, you have a muscle weakness. Okay? It's not a movement pattern problem. It's not that you don't know how to move. Right? Most of these movements are not complicated. A bench press, a deadlift, a squat, yes, there's technical differences. Yes, there's some technique involved, but they're not that complicated. There are people who come in and know how to just intrinsically perform a perfect squat with no coaching. All right? There are people who are just good at movement patterns, and people who are good at movement patterns don't generally require coaching. I have clients who I don't do any form coaching on, by the way. Some of mine, we do hours and hours of it. I have some who I've never had to coach their form on a single movement because they know how to move. Right? If you know how to move, a squat and a deadlift makes sense to you. If you know how to feel your body and know how to move correctly, they're quite natural movement patterns, actually. It's people who haven't been active and don't have good body awareness, maybe never played sports and things like that, who have problems with technique and need to be coached on that the most. And that's fine, but some people are just good at it. So they're not that complicated. If you know how to move correctly and things are breaking down and you know that you're tight, that's muscle weaknesses, and you need to correct those muscle weaknesses. And you have to learn how to assess those. Okay? You have to learn how to assess those yourself. But bad form, which would be defined as the form breaking down as we get heavy or we get really fatigued, right? That's bad form. That's not bad technique. Starts with the empty bar, which I always point out. If you're warming up with a different technique than you use on a 1 rep max, I don't know why you're bothering to warm up at all. It's a complete waste of time. You're not doing anything for yourself other than wasting 3 minutes of your life. Bad form is about muscle weaknesses. That's what causes it. That's why your form breaks down. You have a weak muscle in the kinetic chain somewhere that needs to be developed. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.